It's summertime and the temps are heating up. Let's talk about the market and see if it's reflecting the same. Kevin Shoemaker here with eXp Realty. As always, bringing you June market update, and we're going to talk about the local numbers, but also start with the national numbers to give you a better information and give you an idea of what the market's doing. Is the market shifting? Where's it going? What's rates doing? And what we foresee going forward in the months to come. So if you're thinking about buying, making a move, or potentially potentially selling your home, relocating, or moving up, moving down, whatever it is, we're here to help you, but most importantly, give you the information you need to make a good decision. So let's jump in, take a look. When we look here at the first slide, our inventory has topped 1 million available homes for the first time since winter of 2019. Now, when you look at this graph, what that means is that red thick bar. What that indicates is that's going to be pre-pandemic, which is the grayed out numbers above. Post-pandemic is going to be the numbers below. So you can see as pre-pandemic, when we talk about normal inventory levels, those are the gray areas, and then post-pandemic, those are going to be the ones that are down below. Now, when we look at the next slide, you can see here, as of last month of May 2025, you can see that we're starting to now exceed the post-pandemic levels, and we're going to be getting closer and trend more towards the pre-pandemic levels. What we're anticipating is that we're probably going to get by the end of the year, we're going to see levels of inventory that are going to be very similar to probably 2017 pre-pandemic. So when we look at the America's housing deficit, we look at these numbers and we say, okay, starting in 2012 all the way to 2024, pre-pandemic, you're seeing some of the years where we had a surplus of inventory, and then you can see from 2017 equaling out, and then also getting into the pandemic, you're seeing lower levels. And that was basically because construction sales, the builders couldn't keep up with the inventory and build, and then obviously when the pandemic hit, levels continue to drop. Now what we're seeing in 2024 is we're starting to see we're starting to catch up a little bit. Now what most economists will say is that, and actually Realtor.com came out and made a statement that they believe that we're going to be looking at approximately 7.5 years before we're actually going to get to normal inventory levels, which would have been pre-pandemic levels. Here, you're going to see where's the housing inventory growing the fastest, and so again, above the line, those are going to be comparing post-pandemic, and then below the line, we're going to be comparing pre-pandemic. So again, in the Midwest, our inventory is up 22.9%, but if you compare those to pre-pandemic levels, we're still down 41%. You can see the Northeast, a lot of growth, they're still lacking. There's growth, but they're still lacking. And then when you see going into the South and also into the West, you're seeing that their inventory is climbing and getting close to pre-pandemic levels, which basically what it tells you is that their market's been much slower the first and second quarter of this year comparison to the Midwest and also to the Northeast. Now, inventory has risen since 2021. So you can see how the inventories continue to rise and then again hit that million mark of current inventory. Also, we've seen days on market has risen. So you can continue to see how we've risen on a national level, running in that 50-ish range, average days on market, which again, will break down the local market here in just a few. When you look at existing home sales are down. So when you go back to 2021 and then we are in 2025, and people are saying, well, wait a second, Kevin, I thought you said inventory was up. Well, our inventory is going up, but our existing home sales is down. And what we're seeing is we are seeing a surge in new construction sales. So we are seeing, because we talk about interest rates, we talk about many of the people sitting with 2.5%, 3.5% interest rates, we still have that bubble of inventory out there of people that are still what they feel locked into those lower interest rates and are not moving. So that is sort of limiting some of the options for new buyers coming into the market, and so they're having to go to new construction. So we're seeing a lower levels of existing home sales. But if I was to show you the graph of new construction sales, you would see definitely a sharp increase in incline. Now, when we talk about where we are in the market. The big thing a lot of people are saying is what's values doing? And when we look at consumer confidence, a lot of sellers out there, actually 8 in 10 potential home sellers, I think they can actually get more than what they think they can get more than list price, which is actually 35%. 46% think they're actually going to get their asking price. 13% think they're going to get less, and then there's the 5% that just don't have an idea. The actual numbers is 4 in 10 sellers sold their home for less than their asking price. So we had 44% sold less than list price. We had 28 right at ask price, and then 27 actually sold above list price. So again, it's really, for us as agents, is really educating the consumer and understanding the data, understanding the numbers, so you know where you stand when you go into selling your home, so you're priced right. Because what we do know is if you overprice your home and then you sit for 30, 45 days and then have to do a price reduction, now all of a sudden you're chasing the market. And when you're chasing the market, it's a much more challenging position, because homes that hit the market right away and are priced right will sell quickly and much less apt of negotiation, because buyers are saying, well, they just hit the market. What's the likelihood of them taking much less for the property? Not as high, versus somebody being on the market already for 30, 45, or even 60 days. So again, just really make sure you ask the right questions. And as agents, we need to really do a great job of educating the consumers so they know. Here we have 1/3 of the sellers had to reduce their asking price. So 65% in this scenario was able to, they priced it right and they were able to get their list price. And then you see 21% did 1 price reduction, 9% had to do 2, 4% did 3, and then 2% of the listings out there had to do at least 4 or more price reductions. So diving into the local market now, looking at those numbers. When we look at the median sales price of Fort Collins in blue, Loveland red, and then in the Greeley market in yellow. What you're going to see here, this is going to be over the last year. Fort Collins, we're at 575, so a little bit of an upward tick, a little bit of a downward slope at 504 for Loveland, and then 480 and then we're looking at 480 for the Greeley market. So pretty consistent that you're about $100,000 spread from the Fort Collins to Loveland to Greeley market, and about 60, 70,000 Fort Collins to Loveland. So again, the great thing about living in northern Colorado and the Front Range is there's a lot of great communities. It's really understanding what's important to you. Is it location, proximity? Is it value? Are you willing to save $100,000 and go from Fort Collins to Greeley, or would you go ahead and sacrifice and get a lesser home in Fort Collins, but spend a similar amount that you would in Greeley, getting a much larger home? So again, when you have the right information and we provide that to you, you're able to make better decisions. Here's our average percentage of lists to sale to sold price. So what you're going to see is we're pretty consistent. We're going to be in that 98% range, 98.8% range. That goes into when you see the dips. That you're going to have your fall and winter inventory that sat there a little bit, and then as we climb back and we get into our spring market, you're going to see homes, the fresh inventory that's going to hit the market, and 9 times out of 10, if they price it right, they're going to get their list price. Here's our supply. So when you look at, we always talk about an average normalized market is about 5.5 months inventory. Right now we're sitting about 3 months inventory. So again, we're seeing a surge in inventory, pretty typical for summer months. A surge in inventory, June, July. We typically peak in that July. When we look at the bell curve, we're going to peak. So we see inventory growing, but we're still sitting at that 3-month mark. And then median days on market, we're looking at anywhere from 43 to 49 average days on market. Definitely more in a seller's market than a buyer's market. But the key is you got to price your home right. You got to go through and make sure that you're doing all the little things that you need to make sure that you can compete with new construction, whether that's from freshening up, new paint, new carpet, all the list of things that we share with you when we meet with you and get face-to-face and talk about how you can maximize the value of your home. Now when we look at closed sales, here's again going back to 2022. So you can see the bell curve. The bell curve peaks in July, so we're hitting the top of our bell curve. you can see that our sales volume has actually surpassed that of 2023 and of 2024, and getting closer to numbers that we saw back in 2022. So 330 homes sold in Fort Collins, 338 in the Greeley market, and then 259 in the Loveland market. Now, under contract, this is really the pulse of the market. So the previous one was the ones that have sold. Here's the pulse. And we're seeing a little bit of a decline. We've noticed there's a little bit of slowing in the last 30 days or so. And a lot of it's, again, just the economic influences and uncertainty in the market right now. What we do know is when we talk about interest rates, we do know that we're sort of floating in that 6.25% to 7% range. We believe by the end of the year, we're going to settle out in the low 6 range, but we're not going to see any major drastic drops by any means. But anyway, but when you look at all of the economic changes and influences out there and different statements that are made by the larger powers, they definitely have, they can definitely move the markets and make some and influence people's decisions. So we saw a little bit of a pause. We anticipate now going into to mid-late June, July, we're going to see that pick back up again. So when it comes to when it comes to new listings, you can see what the inventory is doing. So we saw a surge in listings in Fort Collins, 495. We see Loveland and Greeley hovering right in that low 400 range. So again, typical for this time of year, June, July, we hit our peak. So again, if you're thinking about selling, obviously now is going to be a great time to take advantage of the market and the different inventory levels and the different options out there. If you're curious about what's out there and what's available, we have a link below where you can actually get a backstage pass to our MLS system. So click the link below. You'll get connected right to our site where you can search all the homes here in Northern Colorado. And for those of you that are thinking about how has the market really affected the value of my home, we also have a home value estimator. So click the link below at localmarketvalue.com, and you go right there and it'll give you an estimate on what you could sell your home for in today's market. Again, it's a very general number. If you like to dial that number in based upon most recent upgrades and different things you've done, let us know. We're happy to do that for you as well. So again, we're here to be your resource and to help you and your family and friends and loved ones in their real estate decisions here in the Colorado Front Range. Kevin Shoemaker with eXp Realty. Appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to talking to you next month.